YouTube channel brought to you by Red Heart Yarns. In this video, I will show you how to make a simple triangle lace shawl using one ball of yarn. That's right, we are going to use Red Heart's new Super Saver Ombre yarn. This is a tonal colored yarn that you can see gradually shifts from a darker shade to a lighter shade of the same color. Now, these color changes are very gradual. They are not just like cut and start a new yarn and start a new color. They graduate into one color to the next, which makes the shawl itself look really awesome. See how the colors really flow from one to the next? It really makes it easy. Now, this shawl is an easy pattern, and I will show you everything you need to know in order to complete this shawl in this video. Go ahead and grab the free pattern. It is available over on redheart.com. If you look at the video description box right down there below, you will find a direct link to the pattern. While you're down there, please smash that like button, as my kids say, so that other people know you enjoyed this video. Once you have the pattern, you can go ahead and continue on in the video watching me demonstrate how to do the various stitches you need to know to make the shawl, and you can practice on a different yarn if you choose. Or go ahead and grab yourself some Red Heart Super Saver Ombre and jump in. Now, go get the pattern and we'll get started. Before we jump in to learn the stitches, I want to go ahead and take a closer look at the shawl so you can see what the general construction is. As I lay the shawl down, I will point out that we are going to start right here at the center top of the shawl. We will begin by casting on 5 stitches and then placing stitch markers to distinguish the center spine of this shawl. This is a true triangle shawl, so we will increase on the wingspan every other row and down the center spine every other row, making it so we have 2 90-degree triangles that meet together and you get that really cool shawl shape. I guess it would be like this. So we have the 2 degrees and they come together. So you get a really great shawl shape. After you begin by placing those stitch markers, you will work some garter stitch, and then this is where we will begin the stitch repeat. You continue on working in pattern with the stockinette and the eyelet rows until the shawl measures as long as you want it to be or until you run out of yarn. I do want to point out that as you're working with the yarn, you will begin to notice that the yarn has the beautiful tonal and gradual color changes. Now, obviously, this sample shawl began with the nice darker teal color, went to the lighter shade, and then worked its way back out to the darker, back to the lighter. You can start your shawl at any point in the color sequence that you want. Just know that as you start working along, the colors will gradually shift. And fair warning, it becomes really addictive because you can't wait to get to that next color to see what it's going to look like. So make sure you're ready to go when you get this. All right, so now that we have a general sense of what the construction is of this shawl, let's go ahead and learn how to do the stitches. This shawl pattern requires us to begin with 5 stitches. So we start off with our slip knot directly onto our needles. Once you get your slip knot onto your needle, I'm going to suggest that you use a long tail cast on. To do a long tail cast on, place the tail over your thumb, take your working yarn, wrap it around your finger, and once you have those in this position, you now have a slingshot. Once you have the slingshot, you take your needle, start down here at the bottom of your thumb and go up your thumb. Swivel around to the tip of your finger, go down the finger, and then you have this nice little window right here where the thumb is in between the yarn. Swing your needle through that window and let the yarn fall off your thumb and pull. You just have cast on 1 stitch. So we will do that again. We will go up the thumb, down the finger, through the window, off the thumb. Give it a nice tug. There's 3, because you count your slip knot as a stitch. So up the thumb, down the finger, through the window, off the thumb. Up the thumb, down the finger, through the window, off the thumb. Do you have to use a long tail cast on? No, but I prefer the long tail cast on for this particular shawl. If you want more instructions on the long tail cast on, go ahead, click on the little I button right over there, and it'll take you to a video I did specifically for the long tail cast on. Once you've cast on 5 stitches, it's time to begin row 1. You will knit the first stitch. After you've knit that stitch, you'll see that the instructions say yo, which means yarn over. So you take your yarn, you're coming from the back, go between your needles, and go over top and over your right hand needle, and now your yarn is back and back. So that simply right there, that little yarn that's laying on my right hand needle is my yarn over. I will knit 1 more stitch, So as you can see there, it looks like I have 3 stitches, and I will do another yarn over. So I'm in the back, go between my needles, come up and over and back to the back. So that yarn right there as it's laying on my needle is a yarn over. I will now place a stitch marker. So I'm grabbing a stitch marker I've made and I'm placing it directly onto my needle. That stitch marker is going to be on the right side of my center spine. So we've placed a stitch marker and the next part of the instructions say to knit the next stitch. So I will go into the stitch, yarn over, come out and off. So that was knit 1 stitch. And now I have to place another stitch marker. So I'll grab another stitch marker I've made, place it on the other side. So now this stitch marker is on the left side of my center spine of the shawl. Once I've placed that stitch marker, the instructions say to do a yarn over. So I'm from the back, between my needles, and then lay my yarn right on top of my right hand needle. And now my yarn's back and back again. I will knit the next stitch, do another yarn over, so my yarn's in back, come between, up and over, so my yarn's in back, and I will knit my last stitch. We have now completed row 1, and we have set ourselves up for our center spine right here. It's in between that stitch between the 2 stitch markers, and we've already begun to increase on the outside wingspan with these 2, and then by doing that yarn over increase on either side of those stitch markers, that's our center spine increase. So this is where our triangles will begin to increase. So this one lonely stitch right there, so we have the outside stitch, this is our wingspan increase. Here's 1 stitch that represents the body of that triangle, and then this is our yarn over. That's our increase at the center. This is our center spine, and then on the opposite side it's just in reverse. Here's the increase at our center spine. Here's our lonely stitch, which represents the first start of the triangle on this side of the shawl. Here's the increase on the wingspan, and here's our outside stitch. So we have done a whole lot right there in the first row, and it has really set us up with some good information as far as how to do the majority of this shawl already. So let's move on to row 2. I will turn my work, and row 2 just has us knit the entire row. So I am going to go ahead and knit each stitch. And I want to point out, when you come to a yarn over, it's literally just going to look like yarn resting on your left hand needle. And that's exactly what it should look like. Go ahead and go into that whole big loop and just knit through it, okay? If you have accidentally done yarn overs before, you could probably recognize these. It's just we've done them on purpose this time. So there's a yarn over, go into the stitch, yarn over, come out and off. When you come to the marker, I will slip my marker. I'm just slipping it over, not doing anything special. Knit the center stitch, slip my marker, and then knit all of these stitches. So here I am switching my yarn. I'm going to hold it in my left hand this time. It's the exact same motion. I'm just holding my yarn in my opposite hand, and we're moving on to row 3. So row 3 has us begin with a knit stitch. You will begin every row of this shawl with a knit stitch. You will end every row of this shawl with a knit stitch. Every time you're on the right side, after you knit one, you will yarn over. So for a yarn over with your yarn in your left hand, you simply just lay the yarn right over top your right hand needle, just like that. So we yarn over. Now we will knit to the marker. So we will knit each one of these stitches to the marker. Where before we only had 1 stitch there, remember the body of our triangle started with 1, now we're at 3. So I'm to my marker and I'm going to do a yarn over. I simply take my yarn and lay it right on top of my right hand needle. I will slip my marker, okay, because that yarn over right there represents my increase here at the center. Slip my marker, knit 1, slip my marker, and now I do everything again in reverse. So I yarn over, knit to 1 stitch before the end, yarn over, and knit the last stitch. Super easy. Turn my work, and then I will do row 4, which is just knit. So let me knit back, and remember, you will just treat those yarn overs as if it's a stitch, so even though you come to it, it's going to look like that. You simply just knit it. Really easy. Don't overthink it. Don't let it fall off. That's what we want it. You should have 1 at the beginning and 1 right before a marker. Slip your marker, knit the stitch between the markers, slip the marker, and then we have our yarn over right there after that marker, and we'll have one at the very end on the wingspan. We will have this one here every other row. Same with the center. Okay? Turn my work, and I'm back to the right side. It doesn't look like much yet, but I promise you, this is the start of something special. You will repeat these last 2 rows 3 more times, and you will end up with 25 total stitches. That will be the last time you will work garter stitch on this entire shawl. Once you get to 25 stitches, you're ready to move on to the body of the shawl, which is where we work stockinette stitches and some simple lace. So let's get to that point now. We're done with the garter stitch. Let's take a look at the sample shawl to see where we are. I'm going to pull the shawl in and lay it down upside down this time, so we're looking at it in the direction that we are doing our work. Down here, this is the garter stitch portion we just completed. So we are moving on to this portion of the shawl, which is some stockinette, and then it goes into the simple lace bit. And then that is just repeated, stockinette lace, stockinette lace, stockinette lace, until you run out of yarn or until the shawl measures your desired measurement or as written in the pattern. So this next bit of instructions, these next few rows that I'm going to teach you are literally all you need to know in order to complete the rest of this shawl. So let's go ahead and jump in. Hopefully this makes sense. You can see how the center spine goes right down here in the center, and so you have a triangle that works its way here and a triangle that works its way here. And so we started here, and this is where we will build out. We will increase at the wingspan every other row, so the wingspan out here every other row, and we will increase right here down the center spine every other row. If you think of this, that long line right there, that is our center stitch. So if we have our stitch markers on either side of that center stitch, we are always doing our yarn over on outside of those stitch markers every other row. Okay, so let's move this aside and let's see what we have here. So I have the garter stitch section completed, and I'm ready to move on to row 11. So I have all 25 stitches on here. My first row is very similar to what we've already been doing. I knit 1, I yarn over my needle, and then I will knit to the marker, right? So I'll knit to the marker. When I get to the marker, I will yarn over, slip my marker, knit my center stitch, slip my marker, and then do my yarn over again. So let's get all the way over there. I'm knitting as fast as I can. As most of you know, I am primarily a continental knitter, which means I hold my yarn in my other hand. So doing it this way is slow. I will yarn over my needle, and I will slip my marker, knit 1 stitch, slip my marker, and now on this side I have to do the reverse of what I did over here. So I yarn over, knit to 1 stitch until the end. So as I was saying, I'm primarily a continental knitter, which means when I have to knit English style, which is what I'm doing right now, I just tend to be a little bit slower. But it doesn't mean I'm bad, because I can do anything. Just like you can do anything. You can do anything you want to do. This is a great first shawl project. So here we are. I'm to my last stitch. I will simply yarn over my needle and knit my last stitch. This is where the pattern is going to get different a little bit. Are you ready? Because we have to do stockinette. Remember, stockinette is when you will knit 1 row and purl the next row. So I've turned my work, and what we're going to do is we will purl this row, but remember at the start when I said you will always knit the first stitch and you will always knit the last stitch. That remains even on this row. So you will knit this first stitch, and then I will purl all the way to the last stitch where I will knit. So I'm simply purling all the way to the last stitch where I will knit. When I finish this row, so this is row 12, I will then repeat row 11 and 12 2 more times. So I repeat 11 and 12 2 more times. So that means it's a total of 6 rows for the stockinette. 6 rows for the stockinette. I want to point out there, you'll notice that when I slip to my marker, even though I'm purling and my yarn's been in front, I move my yarn to the back and then I slip my marker and then I bring it back to the front. It's so that way my markers don't get stuck in my yarn every time. So there's a little pro tip for you right there. I will knit all the way to the end. Sorry, I'm going as fast as I can, everybody. just because I know you already know how to knit, you already know how to purl. It could be that this is the first time you've ever done increases for a shawl, and I want to make sure you know how to do those. So we will do that one more time here. So I just, see how I did there? I purled that last stitch, so I will undo it because I want to knit it. I will knit that last stitch, turn my work, and this is where I will repeat row 11 again. So this is just like before. I will increase out here. I will increase right before my marker. I will increase right after my marker on this side, and I will increase out here. And remember, the increase we're using is a yarn over. Let me show you one more time. I will knit this first stitch, yarn over my needle. So my yarn was in back, went between my needles, come back over top the right hand needle and back to the back. And then I will simply knit to the marker. Here I am, it's time for my yarn over, so my yarn's in back, bring it to the front, and then go over top of my right hand needle. Slip my marker, knit my next stitch, slip my marker, and I will yarn over again. My yarn's in back, bring between my needles, over top my needle, and then carry on. Knit to the last stitch, and then I will do an increase one more time. So hopefully by now you get the hang of how to do the increases, okay? And you know how to do stockinette. The biggest thing to remember is when you're on the wrong side rows, you want to knit the first stitch and knit the last stitch, but purl all the other stitches. So go ahead and get through these 6 rows of stockinette, and then we will jump in to the 2 rows of the simple lace. We're ready to move on to row 17, and this is where we will combine increases to actually increase our stitch count and increases and decreases that will create the beautiful lace. Let me show you. We will start off here, and we will begin just like we've begun every row with a knit 1. We will also do our yarn over. This is our increase that we want to have on there to increase our number of stitches. Now we will go ahead and knit 1 stitch. From here, we will carry on repeating a yarn over and knit 2 together. That repeat is what's going to give us the beautiful lace. So we will yarn over our needle and then work a knit 2 together. And to do a knit 2 together, you take your right hand needle, put it into the second stitch on the left hand needle and the first stitch. So you're going through 2 stitches, and then you simply knit them together, just as it sounds. So we took 2 stitches and we're making them into 1, but we did an extra stitch by doing our yarn over. See how that makes it so that we don't change our stitch count? So we did a yarn over and a knit 2 together. And we will repeat that all the way until we get to our stitch marker. So I yarned over my needle, and now I knit 2 together. Yarn over my needle, and knit 2 together. Oop, let me try that again. Yarn over my needle and knit 2 together. Let me do that one more time. I keep splitting my yarn on accident. Yarn over my needle and knit 2 together. 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 That puts us right up to our stitch marker, and this is where we will do another yarn over, but this yarn over that we're getting ready to do is an increase yarn over because we want to maintain our increases down the center spine, remember? So this yarn over right there is not coupled with a knit 2 together because we want that to be an extra stitch. You slip your marker, knit the center stitch, slip your marker. Now we will work the other side of the triangle in reverse. So we will begin with our yarn over and then jump into a knit 2 together, yarn over, knit 2 together, yarn over. The instructions have it in parentheses or brackets where it's yarn over, knit 2 together, but I'm just changing up the wording a little bit. Nothing is changing on the pattern, but I want to be able to explain to you where the stitches are and how it works. So here we go. Just as when we make this side of our shawl, we want it to be a mirror image to this side. So just like when we did this last yarn over right here, which is the yarn over increase we want because we want our stitches to increase, we have to do one on this side, correct? We have to do one right after that marker. So we will do that right now. So we will yarn over. To make it a mirror image to this side though, our repeat now is a knit two together, yarn over, knit two together, yarn over, because this is where we want to decrease our number of stitches right here, but then we want to increase it. So we took 2 stitches, made them into 1, but then we did our increase with our yarn over. We do our knit two together, and then a yarn over. So we maintain those 2 stitches. Knit two together, yarn over. Knit 2 together, yarn over, 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 and knit 2 together. I'm to the last 2 stitches, and this is where the pattern wants me to be, but we just did a knit 2 together, and we need to couple that with a yarn over, so let's go ahead and do that, and that's what's written in the pattern. So we will yarn over our needle. So that completes our knit 2 together and yarn over, so we get our 2 there. And then we have to do a knit 1, our yarn over here to increase our wingspan, and then knit our last stitch. So let's set this down one more time and just take a peek at what we just did, okay? We began with our knit 1, and we worked a yarn over increase. This is an actual increase for our wingspan. Then we did a knit 1, so there's 3 stitches there that were just basic stitches. And we jumped into a repeat here of simple lace, of yarn over, knit 2 together, yarn over, knit 2 together, yarn over, knit 2 together, all the way down. And by doing that, our yarn over gives us an increase, but our knit 2 together gives us our decrease. And this is what's going to create the lace, because those yarn overs are giving us those holes, right? We come down here to where our stitch markers are. And just like we've been doing all along, we want to make sure we do our increases on either side of our stitch marker. And just like always, this side of the shawl is mirrored by this side of the shawl. So if we went back, you know, from the center going back, it would look like a mirror image. So we did an increase over here on this side, past the stitch marker, and then we did a knit 2 together, yarn over, knit 2 together, yarn over, all the way to the last 2 stitches. So we did knit 2 together, yarn over, all the way to the last 2 stitches. And then you have a yarn over, so that we knit 1, yarn over, and then knit 1. So this is where we are. Once you get to this point, the next row is just like what we've been doing all along. You will knit the first stitch, purl all the stitches in the center, and knit the last stitch. I'm going to bring in something I've been working on a little bit earlier so you can see what it looks like as you get a little bit further. Now this little swatch, I decided I was going to only do 4 rows between my lace portions just because I wanted to see what it would look like. So for this one, I only did 4 stockinette stitch rows between my lace portions. And to maintain, how about this, to keep track of how many rows I've done between each lace portion, I took another stitch marker that I've created with a lobster claw, and I placed it on the very first row of my repeat of row, so this would be row 11, row 12, row 11, row 12. So those are my 4 stitches. And I'm ready to jump into my lace portion again. And then as you're using the Red Heart Super Saver Ombre yarn, as you're going along, you'll even notice in this little sample here, it started with the darker teal and it's starting to go a little bit lighter. Just like in the sample pattern, which is more blue, this is a really pretty sort of Caribbean blue color. And it starts with a darker blue and it gradually goes to a lighter shade, and then that gradually goes to the darker shade again. So you don't have any really crisp, abrupt color changes like other yarns out there. This is really tonal, beautiful, gradual color changes. You finish off this shawl with some simple eyelets, once again, the simple lace eyelets. And then you will then bind off knitwise the very last row. The last thing to do, the designer suggests just spritzing it with some water and lightly blocking it. But honestly, you could probably just throw this in the washer and dryer and just, you know, be able to pull it out because it is Super Saver. It's machine washable and dryable. So you can treat this just like you would everything else you make with Super Saver, and you will love it, and it's beautiful, and people are going to ask you to make one for them. Now you know how to make the simple lace triangle shawl using the brand new Red Heart Super Saver Ombre yarns. It comes in a 10-ounce ball, you guys. One ball creates this entire entire shawl and you're going to love it. If you do make this shawl, please share with me over on Facebook. I'll put a link right down in the video description box below. And while you're down there checking that out, make sure you smash that like button, you guys. I'm Marley Bird, proud spokesperson for Red Heart Yarns, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye. Did you like this video? I hope you did. Why don't you go ahead and subscribe to the Marley Bird YouTube channel. There's a little subscribe button right down there, and next to it there's a little bell. If you click that bell, it'll make sure that it dings every time I post a new video. So you'll be up to date whenever there's a new video out there showing you how to be a better knitter or crocheter.